Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got a pair of Dell Inspiron laptops here. These are both Inspiron 1530, 3520 it actually says on the bottom of that one. So yeah, Inspiron 3520 laptops. Both have the same issue, and it's an absolute classic for both Inspirons and many other consumer laptops alike. It is broken hinges. So real common fault. This is one of the main reasons why I just don't sell new laptops, because just modern consumer laptops are they're just this, and I don't know what to do about it, quite frankly. So personally, I sell reconditioned laptops, and I go for the Dell Latitude line, which apart from a couple of models, there are a few Latitude models which are basically just rebadged Inspirons, but most of them are completely different chassis and are far better built than the Inspiron line is. And you get the same thing with a lot of other brands. Lenovo have got their consumer TAT, and then they've got the ThinkPads. HP have their Pavilion TAT, and then they have the EliteBook and the ProBook. When you look at the business line of laptops, they are drastically better built than the consumer grade ones are. Unfortunately, they cost more, but here in the UK, you can often find reconditioned ex-business laptops for very reasonable money, so that's usually what I aim for. But at any rate, people do buy these laptops, and they break because they're made of cheese. So let's see what we're going to do to fix this. This one is definitely the worst of the two, and what we need to do on both of them is replace this bit, which is the top lid. So the back of the display assembly, known as the top lid. I've already bought parts in advance for both of these, so we're going to get straight to it. So the first thing we're going to do, I'll focus on one of these laptops, and if it doesn't go very well, then I'll do the other one. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to disassemble the laptop. We'll start from the beginning. I'm going to take the bottom off of the laptop. We're going to get the display assembly off, and then we can move forward from there. The real big danger of this breakage is right now we've got is that it's progressive. Right now we've got just the broken mounting points, but this will easily progress to broken wires, broken antennas, broken screens, and more. Customers are often really bad for ignoring this problem and living with it. And every time they come in where it's just starting to go, I'll say to them, that hinge is moments away from breaking. You need to deal with this. We have got to get that fixed because it is going to get worse. And they'll be like, oh, well, it hasn't broken yet. I'll get back to you on that. And I've had those instances where they come back in a week later and the screen has snapped in half, cracked the LCD, ripped the display cable. And I'm like, yeah, that's now going to be twice what I previously quoted you. If you'd got it done then, it wouldn't have been a big deal. It wouldn't have been that expensive. But if you leave it, it will just wreck the laptop. So you have to deal with it. Anyway, I don't need to preach to you guys because you guys are probably repair technicians or strange people living vicariously through repair technicians. Hi, I see you. You're valid. Anyway, I'm going to get the back cover off of this. I'll roll the intro, and we'll get the display assembly disconnected. We'll start by disconnecting the battery, which is always important to do when you're working on the laptop, especially important if you plan on disconnecting the screen, because the screen backlight rail is very often an always hot rail, which means as long as the battery is connected or the charger is plugged in, there is power going to the screen, even if it's not actually on. And what that means is that when you disconnect, this is now unplugged. When you disconnect this cable, if you take it out just slightly unevenly, if it comes out weirdly and it just scrapes across like that, you might just scrape that backlight power rail across a ground and blow up the backlight fuse, or you might scrape it across a data line going into the CPU and immediately kill the CPU of the laptop. So you've got to be pretty unlucky for that to happen, but it is real and it does happen, and I have seen it. So yeah, don't mess about. I used to be a bit blasé about this in my early days. However, having seen it now, I'm a little bit more wary. So let's also get these antennas disconnected, and then I'm going to restart the camera because I can see it dropping frames. All right, you going to behave now? I think so. Let's carry on. Whatever. If it's going to jump, so be it. Right, now I'm just going to undo the hinges for the display. And will that come out? Yeah. If it's as far gone as this laptop is, the hinges will probably drop out. If it's not, you might have to very, very carefully try and open the hinges up in order to actually get them out the laptop. Try to make sure that you look out for any stray screws because you're going to need these afterwards. We don't need to worry about the brass fittings because those are getting replaced, but the screws, you'll need those. When people say that they want to get into computer repair and laptop repair and just what I do, jobs like these are a great place to get started because this doesn't require a lot of technical knowledge. This is what I call an assembly job, where essentially all you're doing is just taking the laptop apart and putting it back together again with new parts. So this is a pretty accessible place to get into the repair business, just doing this kind of thing. And, you know, even though a lot of modern laptops are getting more and more integrated and difficult to repair, with the current just state of consumer laptops, this problem isn't going anywhere soon, in my opinion. Cool. Right, we've got our display assembly off, so the body of the laptop, we can put this to one side now. Now we need to take apart the display assembly, and our objectives here are not to break anything that is not already broken. So on this one, the front bezel, or the frame, this is already snapped. I already have a spare for this, so I'm just going to rip this guy off. I don't care if I bust this guy up. However, the LCD screen, this is not cracked, so we don't want to bust that. I'll demonstrate how to get this frame off properly just for good measure. You want to get your prying tool and find a spot and just dig in under there and just gently pry away. And you're looking for a point where it's hooked in, and just try going both directions. Try going down or try going up, and just find a position where it starts. There we go. Find a position where it starts defeating the clips. So we slide along. On this one, it just goes up a bit, and we start getting clicks. It's quite common for the bezel to have a strip of double-sided tape around the inside edge to seal it against the LCD. That helps stop moisture getting in, and it just makes it look nicer. It looks more sealed. So when you start removing the frame, you need to be just careful when you're lifting that off. Oh no, this one isn't glued. HPs nearly always have glue on them though. You can either just add a little bit of heat to just loosen that glue off. I usually find that's not necessary. What you will often find though is if it has been glued, you'll probably start tearing off some of the plastic wrap around the LCD. That's not ideal, but at the same time, the LCD will survive that. I've ended up with some pretty tattered looking LCDs before, but they still work fine, and once you put the new bezel on and cover it all up, it's fine, basically. So, right, there's our front bezel. So this one did have a strip of glue along the bottom, but we're not worried about that. So this is broken. I'm going to throw it to one side. And now, by this point, we should have a pretty good idea of where the damage is and how much we have to replace. So let's have a quick inspection. Firstly, if I bring in the body of the laptop again, the body does have a metal chassis, and the hinges are bolted onto a metal chassis. So there's no damage to any of these here. So the laptop case is fine. So this section is known as the case or the palm rest on a modern laptop, and these mounts are completely fine. They're not broken because they're metal. The hinges themselves, these are also not broken. They have not snapped. Some laptops you will find that the hinge, if we position that there, the hinge is actually bonded to a strip going all the way up the side of the screen. That's on older laptops. That will often break off, meaning that your hinges now need to be replaced as well. In this case, these hinges are separate pieces and it all bolts together. So these are not damaged and we don't need to replace them. However, what I will do is they do have this adjuster nut on it, and I'll just undo that just a little bit just to loosen the hinge. And that will help relieve the strain that is put into the screen when the laptop is open and closed, which is kind of the root cause of this. Well, the root cause is that it's plastic, but the fact that the hinges are a bit too stiff is not helping. So we'll clean these up, back off that nut a little bit. Some people put a little bit of lubricant into there as well. I might do that for the sake of it. I've got some silicone lubricant that I'll spray in there. I don't know how effective that is, but backing the nut off a little bit, that's definitely effective in my opinion. So hinges, those are okay. Hold on to those. But now we can see here where these brass inserts have snapped off from the plastic in here, and that is the root cause of this failure. So the part that we actually need to replace is this top lid, and that's what I have as a spare. So we need to carry on taking this apart, and then we can put it all back together in the new stuff. So I'll finish disassembling this, and then I'll just quickly show you how we can look up the spare parts, and then we can order those and start fitting them. Now, to get the LCD screen out, on older laptops, you would have had screws around the screen, and you'd take those screws out and lift the panel out. Modern screens are all glued in. Thankfully, it's not all bad. They use what's called stretch release tape, and you'll find there's a tab somewhere. So in this one, there's the tab there, that little shiny bit there. Quite often it's down here as well. So you want to find wherever the tabs may be, and I usually use a pair of tweezers just to initially get a grip on them. So I'll just grab that guy and start pulling, and literally just start pulling on it. There we go, that's come out a little bit so I can get my fingers. Now, as I pull, the whole thing is just going to stretch all the way out. And it's tempting to do a big long sort of wah and rip it out, but if you do that, it's going to snap, and then you will have a bad time. If these guys snap, you're really in trouble with regards to getting the screen out without breaking it. It can be done, but you're in trouble. I'm not going to go into details on how to recover from that, because that's outside of the scope of this video, but just go carefully is what I'm saying. And now I'm going to go finger over finger like this, and just keep pulling on that. And because I'm going finger over finger, we're just reducing the amount of strain we put into this tape, and that means that it won't snap. There we go. And there's the stretch release tape. So that would have been all the way down the back of the monitor like that. It's magic stuff, this. It's great. While ideally I would like a world where stuff isn't glued together and is just bolted together, because that's far more repairable, this stretch release tape, it is the more preferable solution if they're going to glue stuff in. Oh, that's just jumped out the side. Okay, that's fine. That happens sometimes. Sometimes this can be preferable and make it easier, but also if you go too sideways, it might catch on something and snap. So I try and keep it straight when possible. So now I've removed those two stretch release tabs. This should just lift out. There we go. And I'll just peel back the tape on the back here, and we can disconnect the display connector. Locking lever opens and it pulls out. There, and that's our screen safely out. There's some marks on it here where that's where the hinge has been banging into it and stuff. You can see how easily this can end up in a cracked screen. And yeah, there's some marks on it there. It's dirty, but that will clean up. Overall, this isn't too bad. I've seen them come out worse than this and still be okay. So let's put that to one side. Now there's a few more bits that we need to take from this before we're done. We're going to need the wireless antennas, so I'll just pull these out. And left side one is behind the webcam wire, so let's just grab that. So I'll just pull that all the way up to the back. And the webcam wire will disconnect, but I usually pull it out as one single piece. These webcams are on extremely thin PCBs, and it's very easy to snap these in half if you're not careful. So just get your prying tool underneath there and just gently lever it up to defeat the double-sided tape under it. There's our display cable and webcam. And the antenna, we'll just peel that back as well. And for this one, I'd recommend just paying attention to the route that the wire is taking along the bottom here, because we'll need to reproduce that. So that's kind of going along in the middle. And now finally, I'm not sure if I'm going to need them or not, but I'll take them anyway because we've come this far, is we'll take these metal side plates out. So those should just pop out. There's the left side and the right side. There's some little rubber bits to hold the screen in place. I'll be very surprised if the new one doesn't have these, so I'll leave them there for now. Let's find some spare parts now. I'm going to use eBay for this, and we're going to need to know the exact make and model of the laptop. Now, that might seem obvious, but on Dells, it's not always obvious. These particular Inspirons actually say the model number on the bottom. It says Inspiron 15 3515 on this one. The other ones are 3520. But that's actually quite uncommon. Most Dells don't actually tell you which model they are. It just says Dell Inspiron, or maybe Dell Inspiron 15, which doesn't tell you anything. So the way around that is to look at the serial tag, or the serial number on the bottom of it. Do a Google search for Dell warranty check and put in that serial tag, and that will tell you the exact model of the laptop. So this is really handy when you've got an Inspiron, or for example a Dell XPS, where the bottom will just say Dell XPS. It won't tell you exactly which one it is. So that's how you can find out from a Dell. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to type in Inspiron 3515 lid. So this seems to be a pretty good start price. Let's open that in a new tab. Let's do lowest price PMP first. There we go. Inspiron 35, 10, 11, 15, and 20. Now the one that I'm working on, I need a frame or a bezel as well. So if we actually have a look, these guys have probably got with hinges. They don't have with frame. They're out of stock. Okay. Has anyone got the frame as well? Here we go. Black with frame. 40 quid. So that's also fairly steep. That's probably working out at about 15-16 pounds with the frame. So it's up to you. Go scouting. I'm sure you can save a fiver here, a fiver there if you go looking. But yeah, people will often go have kits. And if you go hunting, you can sometimes find someone who's got the whole shebang as well. These ones, the hinges don't break very often on these Dells, but on other laptops where the hinges are also prone to breakage, you'll often find people who have just the lid, the frame, and the hinges as a complete set, and you can just buy the whole shooting match from one person. That might cost a little bit extra, but it's a lot more convenient than finding single items from multiple different sellers. So stick that in your basket, buy it, get it on the way, and you've got brand new parts to fit. Right, and here is our replacement top lid. As expected, it does come with the little rubber bits on it, but we've got to put everything else in here. Obviously we've got not broken mounts now, so those are all there. And something that I forgot to point out in the previous scene as well is when you're buying these, it's quite common for the pictures on eBay to have the manufacturer's logo covered up. However, in my experience, it's incredibly rare for replacement parts to not have the logo on them. Even if it's blacked out in the picture, or the picture just like they've digitally removed it or something like that. I think like maybe one time ever have I ever bought parts like this and had it not have the logo on. So it will actually be the proper thing. So, right. So we've got that, and then somewhere here there is our replacement bezel as well. So replacement frame. So again, these things are annoyingly expensive. It did come with the double-sided tape on it at least, so that's nice. So we'll end up with something that actually looks nice when it's finished. Cool. So let's start putting bits back into this. I'm going to start by fitting these side bits. So those go up in there. Now for the Wi-Fi antennas, we'll just line that up approximately where it wants to sit, and then stick that back down. And now I've got to start running these wires. This is where it gets annoying. So you've kind of just got to figure this out, but if you look at the existing kinks in the wire, that will help you guide it to where it wants to go. So I can see from this one that the natural kinks are making it go diagonally across here and into that channel. And so we can kind of just follow the kinks in the wire and see where it was originally sitting. I've got a video reference if I get in trouble, but still, this means that you can do it fairly quickly. And I'm probably just going to grab a little bit of tape and just tape that down just to hold it in place, because it stops it jumping out of position every time you let go of it. That's Wi-Fi done. Let's get our display cable in place. So we'll start from the webcam here. And the webcam usually has a locator hole, at least one. There's one here, and there's another one there. So find those holes if it has them, and they'll line up with some pins sticking out of the casing. And that will ensure that when you put it in place, it's exactly centralized. And the sticky back will usually go down a second time. That's that ready. Now for the display, I've got some replacement stretch release tabs here. I sometimes use stretch release. Occasionally I'll just use double-sided tape. However, if I'm going to use double-sided tape, I'll use it very sparingly. I'll usually put just like a half-inch section in each corner, just so if the screen needs to come out again, there's actually half a chance of removing it without demolishing it. And I found that effective. I have had to remove screens that I've taped in before, because sometimes you get clumsy customers who will just break it again, and I have successfully removed them without annihilating the screen. However, at the moment, I do actually have a couple of these. Ideally, if you're using short ones like this, you'd want 4, so you can put 1 in each corner. However, these 2 just in the top left and top right will be fine. The screen ain't going to fall out, basically. I would say that much. In my opinion, I like to have a light touch for things that are glued in, just so you don't give the next person who works on it a terrible time. Put that there. And just make sure that's stuck down properly. And make sure this connector is in properly. So you want to make sure the locking lever is closed. And then I just get my fingernail and just give it an extra push just to make sure that's definitely in. Because I have seen cases where the locking lever is down and shut, but it can just go in just another millimeter. And sometimes that's the difference between the screen actually working or not. And I'm just going to line this up and just make sure everything is sitting nicely before I commit to the tape. That seems pretty good. Everything is sitting down. It's all gone flush. I'm not having to press down anywhere. So yeah, I'm confident I'm going to commit to that. So I'll just lift that up a little bit. And I'll just use some tweezers just to take off the backing of the tape. One. And the other. And thankfully, on this particular screen, those rubber bits in the corners make sure that the LCD is perfectly aligned. And now we're going to start putting the hinges back together. So I'll put this to a side for 1 sec so we can clean up our hinges. And I'm going to start by removing the hinge covers. And I'll just toothbrush the dust and grime off of those to make them a bit nicer to handle. And I'm going to take all these screws out, so I'll grab a pair of pliers. And we can just hold on to those brass inserts with pliers while I undo the screws. Right. Those actually don't feel too stiff. If you're having no issues opening and closing them with your hands like this, they're probably not so bad, but I'll back them out a little bit anyway. So I'm literally just going to go a couple of degrees. There we go. Just a tiny little tweak. Yeah, that's definitely loosened them up. Worst case scenario is the screen's a bit too floppy and you have to go back in afterwards and just tighten them a tiny bit, but that generally isn't an issue in my experience. Now I'm just going to go over these screws with a manual screwdriver and just give them a bit of bite. You can't go as strong as you'd like to because, again, it's still plastic and you'll just break it again. However, you want to make sure that they've got just a bit of bite in them so they're not going to come loose on their own. Because that's the other principal cause of this failure, is where these things get a proper workout, they do work loose. And once they come slightly loose, the hinge can start rocking in the assembly every time the screen is opened and closed, which then makes the fault even worse because, number one, the screws continue to become loosened by the movement, but number two, when the hinge can move like that, it gains leverage against things, and that leverage is amplified by the size of the screen, which is a pretty big lever, and then suddenly it's got all that extra leverage to then rip things out. That isn't what happened to this particular laptop, and I can tell that because all of the screws were in the hinges and they were pretty tight. But on a lot of laptops, when you see this kind of hinge damage, it's not uncommon to find a lot of the screws are just loose or missing entirely, which is usually a dead giveaway that they worked themselves out over time. Now I think we're ready to put the bezel on. You can give the screen a preliminary wipe down at this stage if you want to, but I've found that I found over time that it's better to just wait until you've finished reassembling everything and then clean it up. So that's what I'm going to do, and that way you don't have to worry about getting moisture inside or, you know, catching the edges of it or anything like that. So I'm just removing the backing on the double-sided tape here, and we'll just get this guy lined up. Something else which I've also forgotten to do, but I'm going to commit to just for the sake of not bogging down the video, is I really should have actually just switched the laptop on before we got started and just actually made sure that the screen is not damaged. We could even do that now if we wanted to, just by grabbing the body of the laptop and doing a very rough turn-on test. And actually, we've come this far, so let's do that. Because, yeah, it's pretty... Considering I'm about to stick this down, it would be kind of cavalier to not actually check it. So let's quickly do that. I'll just hold this in place, connect the screen. This laptop makes it fairly easy to just hold it in place and do a very quick picture test. And hopefully the battery's got some charge in it. We just need a few seconds just to see that it gives a picture. So that's in. Power button. I think we're RAM training. Okay. The caps lock light is on, which means it's still posting. So I'll give it time. Yeah, that's all good. There's no cracks around the edges or black bars on the screen or anything like that. I'm just going to unplug the battery directly. Windows doesn't care if it gets a bad shutdown once. I'm going to start in the top corner because that's the easiest place to align. And once you get one section aligned, everything else can follow. So we'll just go along the top and just click that all into place. And finally we can put on the hinge covers, which I've mixed up, so I've no idea which way round they go. I'll figure it out by trial and error. If we have a look at the hinge itself, you can see that this little hook bit is offset to the right. I think the long side goes on the bottom, actually. And so that would mean that it goes that way around. Just kind of wrestle that into place and click it down. There we go, that's our rebuilt display assembly. It's all intact and the wires are out and they're nice and free. They're not trapped and they can rotate in the hinge. So as the screen opens and closes, those aren't going to bind up and get torn. Cool. So now I can just bring in the base of the laptop and lay that down. And we'll just close the hinges over that. And now I'll run the wires back around into position and bolt the hinges down. And like with the other hinges, we're going to do these up with just a bit of extra bite. Most computer screws, I always say to people, you know, it doesn't have to be as tight as you can go. It's not a car. It's not getting shaken down the highway at 70 miles an hour. However, because these are hinge screws, they are actually taking mechanical strain. So we do actually want them to be as tight as we dare, almost. If you're really belt and braces, you can use a little bit of Loctite on them. I don't personally, and that's never caused me an issue. But, you know, lots of people recommend it, and I don't think it's a bad idea. There we go. Those ain't coming out. Reconnect battery. There we go. Right. Now this thing desperately wants a nice clean, so let's give it some love, and then we're all finished. This has kind of gone flappy. I'm just going to take this sticker off. I'm sure someone will be mad about that. I don't think the customer will be. I'm using ordinary store brand glass cleaner and a microfiber cloth for the cleaning here. And I'm just going to spritz across the laptop Just one solid spritz for the screen and one for the body. And I'm going to hold the cloth so the grain lines up with the direction of movement. This helps stop it from catching on edges and stuff like that. Turn to the dry side and go over it again. Back to the wet side to do the screen. And back to the dry side again. Oh, the laptop decided to turn on because I mashed the power button. That's all right. As you can see, that screen is looking nice now. Nice smooth finish with no streaks on it. And the keyboard looks a lot better after having a quick once over as well. If you want to, you can also go over the plastics with some ordinary multi-surface polish. Here's just some ordinary pledge. This is the kind of stuff that you'd just like clean a coffee table with. You don't want to use this on the LCD itself, but if you use this on the plastic bodywork, you'll get a really smooth finish that just rejects fingerprints and grease and stuff, and it makes the laptop smell nice as well. And that can go a long way with your customers. When they get it back, they open it up and they're like, it's lovely and clean and it smells nice, and just, yeah, it's a nice finishing touch. Right, I'll do that off camera because we're pretty much done. I've shown you what I want to. And that's how you rebuild the display assembly on a Dell Inspiron 15. And it's pretty much the same general gist for most modern laptops. So if you've done one, you've done them all. Right, I've got another one of these to do now, but that's for off camera. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. As always, many thanks to my Patreons, my channel members, and my Twitch subscribers. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.